I'd like to call the meeting to order. I'd like to let it rain. There we go. Success. I'd like everybody that can please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Board members are present this evening.
Okay, I'm going to insert something here a little bit earlier than we normally would. I don't know how many people have paid attention to how many years it's been since 2001, and today is 18 years. It's one of those things that I was thinking about it a lot, and I'm thinking about in those 18 years, how our society has changed over that disaster. A few people made life hell for a world. And I think that one of the things that's come from that, and I'm pretty emotional about this, is how much agitation and aggravation there is in the world because everybody wants to get even with something. And I think that that is spread from that one event. That poisoned us to think, how can we get back at somebody for something and make it the right thing to do? I know that it wasn't right for somebody to kill that many people with whatever their rationale was, and I know that it's not right for us to go to war. I just believe it's wrong in just about every case there possibly is. But one thing I hope we can do is somehow change this thing so that we get rid of this aggravated, agitated hatefulness that our society seems to have today. And it isn't just in the U.S., you can see it all over the world. England and France and the Middle East has had plenty of its problems, and most of them created by people like England and the United States and in the past. So if we can do anything as a population here in Highland, what we need to do is we need to try and not have that split between those that we think are right or those that we think are left, and we need to think about those of us as a whole. And hopefully that year number 19 and 20 will be something where we can get resolution to this stuff and not have to continue to think about this issue as a memorial for 3,000 people that died in one event. We need to look at it as a change in our way of thinking about life and how we move forward. And I think that most of those people that died would probably consider the same element. So I'd like to take a moment of silence in memory of that. All right, we'll move on with the...
Can I say one thing?
Yes.
I teach at Lakeland, and today we, of course, talked about it in each class. And the interesting thing to me is that I have a few students that were just babies when it happened. I mean, when I first started doing this stuff, they were talking about kids. They were mad at Lakewood because they told them there's bees in the playground. They couldn't go out for recess, and they were all mad on 9/11 because nobody knew what was going on. Now I've got a handful of kids that were just born. There's not one kid in my classes that remembers anything about it. So it's really, my point is how fast it's gone by. Just it's crazy. It's 18 years. And so that's the biggest takeaway I got today. And kids are still just they were very in tune and very intrigued by the whole thing. And we had some great conversations. And some people had family members that, my grandpa that was supposed to be in one of the Twin Towers, we forgot his phone. They went back to get it at the hotel, and one of my students. So it's very interesting. So, and I found out today the producer of South Park slept through the plane, so that's why he didn't get on the plane. So I didn't know that. Kid taught me that. So anyways, that was you. There she is right there. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, so we'll move on. There's a couple of changes I'd like to make to the agenda. Number 7, the presentation with Judge Law and Judge Reed will not occur today. One of the judges couldn't make it. They'll postpone that to a later date. Number, let's see where I can find that one here. 11B, we're going to remove that. We've had a change in that. And then on item F, under the budget amendment, police department, in that budget amendment, it's listed as library, and it needs to be changed to police. The numbers, I checked them today at the end of the day here, and they are all correct. So the account numbers are correct, but the word should be police. And also, there's no documentation for the vaping ordinance discussion, if anybody's looking for it. So, yes.
I'd like to add to the agenda, probably under closed session, a discussion of the complaint the board all received about the hierarchy.
Well, we can add it to it and see how the attorney feels about it. We looked at that earlier today to see if there was actually something that would allow us to have a closed session, and the way it works is that the one who complains needs to ask for.
It's actually the person who is receiving discipline.
Right.
Has to
request.
Who has to
consent.
request?
The person who is being disciplined.
Well, then we can discuss it in open session, unless you request it to be closed session.
I disagree with discussing in open session, but I would like to suggest that we decide that when Gary gets here, and we can decide if we want to have a closed session about it.
I'd like to add it to the agenda now, and then if we don't.
Well, we'll add it to the agenda for a possible closed session.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? All right, motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howell?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, consent agenda approval.
I would move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Yes. And, okay, at this point, I do want to bring something out of the public because it happened in the consent agenda, but sitting in our audience is a young lady named Stephanie Lake. Stephanie, do you mind standing up, please? In this consent agenda, we just approved your addition to being a member of the Downtown Development Authority Board. And Stephanie has background in architecture and has done some pretty interesting things with CAD and graphics, and I think it's going to be an awesome addition to the DDA. It's something that we really need, and we appreciate your interest in being a part of that. So thank you very much. Finally, somebody that can do CAD and I don't have to think about it. And she's way better than I am. Okay, so the next item is announcements and information. Remember the farmers market every Saturday till October 26th from 9 to noon. It's at the intersection of Milford Road and Livingston Road. The Highland Activity Center has a health fair September 26th. The Chill at the Mill has a raffle for a handmade king-size quilt. The tickets are $5 each, or 5 for $20. You can get them at the library. Do we have them here as well?
Yep.
And all the proceeds from the that raffle will go towards the Chill at the Mill playground.
Something to add.
So now we're at the most exciting part of our event, public comment. Anybody have any public comment? Yes, sir.
Dennis Raymond, 6039 Fish Lake Road. What I have here is the township's file on Jeremy Stocker DBA unwanted autos. And the thing I have to say is that this has been going on for 19 years. According to your file, the first complaint was in 2001. And as you know, nothing has really gotten done. When we went to court, well, before that, his attorney called my attorney and said he's not operating anything there. So my attorney said, well, we have over 80 pictures showing him that he's, still doing the business. So with that said, he moved his business to, to SA Lane. So I wouldn't be able to take the pictures of him at all. So I'm just letting you know that he's operating his junkyard out of SA Lane. Daniel Scott, I've seen him 3 times. I will sign the affidavit that I've seen it. What he's doing now is he's going down into Rose Township, down Munger Road, and heading south on Milford so he can avoid my property. So I will send everybody an email sometime this week, maybe next week, and asking Sean Bell to investigate it, because this has been going on for 20 years now, and nothing is, and he's gone to court, but he has never paid any big fines or whatever. He's never gone to jail. It's sooner or later, he's gonna go, okay, because he's still operating out of there, and I only got a little bit of time. But the other day, a truck pulled into my driveway with a junk car, which I have a picture of, asking for 6248 Fish Lake Road. And I said, well, what are you doing? He said, I'm picking up a junk car. So he's still doing it, okay, he's still salvaging stuff. The only problem is he's doing it later, probably at night, to where my cameras won't pick it up, but that's gonna change. So all I'm telling you is that I hope Sean Bell decides to do something with it, because if not, I'm just gonna keep pressing it. This guy is running his junkyard. There's possible ground contamination, which I haven't even gotten into yet, with oils, fluids, and everything else. His property, that one, and the old site on Milford Road where the gas station is. I haven't even sent my letters to the MDEQ in regard to all of that. So I'm just telling you, he's moved his operation, and he's sneaky like he always is. And we will end up going back to court again. Hopefully this time, the judge will put his butt in jail.
And before you leave the stand there, I said before you leave the stand there, you said that you would agree to sign an affidavit.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect. I'll tomorrow morning, you sent an email, but tomorrow morning I will talk with Mr. Bell.
Okay.
And we'll move it forward.
Okay, I will definitely sign the affidavit, this time. And like I said, he's still doing it.
All right.
He's doing it late at night, and 20 years of this stuff is totally ridiculous. I know we've been around and around and around, but something has got to be done. He's got to be, threatened to go to jail or whatever, because all he's doing is spitting in your face, laughing at you, because all he's doing is going and paying the $75 fine, the $50 fine, or whatever. He's making everybody look like a fool.
All right, thank you, Dennis,
Okay.
and we will move that forward.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Anybody else, public comment? Yes.
Taxes are due September 14th, and because it's on Saturday, it's extended till Monday, September 16th. And the other thing I wanted to comment on Rick's beginning about the September 11th. On October 19th, we're planning a community dinner with a capital U at the Highland Station House. And that is an evening where we're gonna have a discussion about how to have those difficult discussions, hopefully at your Thanksgiving table, so you don't alienate any of your family. We have an improv group coming. Haley Stevens is coming with Senator Ruth Johnson to talk about how they talk across the aisle, and hopefully we'll all learn something from
What day is that
that.
again, Judy?
Saturday, October 19th, and it's $15 a person and includes dinner. So it should be an interesting and educational and fun evening, so I hope you'll all come.
Tickets available at,
Probably next
Fire
week
station.
at the Township, at the library, or through the Business Association.
Oh,
Okay.
where's that
do
again?
you guys hear that?
It's at the station house.
So tickets will be available through the library, the Township Hall, or the Business Association,
Highland Station House.
and they'll be out
Yeah.
next week,
Sure.
and there is a limited number that we can have. What's our number inside there? You know what the capacity is, 125?
I think we're up to 80.
Okay. So, on that note,
Should be a great evening.
any- get-
HWLBA.com.
Okay, Gary?
Hi, Gary Cornelier, 3248 Lakeview Drive, Highland, Michigan, 54-year Highland resident. I'm real proud to live in this township, as I'm sure many of you are also. We have, as you can already see, a real caring supervisor and a board of trustees who are not in it for the money. They're not politicians. They're teachers, they're mentors, they're people who have lived and worked in this community well before ever getting into political office. And they're very approachable, as you've already seen. We're served by the Oakland County Sheriff's Department that does a wonderful job under Lieutenant Matt Schneider. We're served at a wonderful fire department. We're blessed to live in this township. You can pull over many different roads in this township and experience nature at its finest. I just want to thank this board for serving as long as they do and taking the things that we do. I want to thank the residents that tonight have made respectful comments. I was going to mention what Treasurer Judy Cooper mentioned, but I would encourage anyone to go to that so we can learn to talk together and work together to make this township better. Thank you very much.
Speechless, thank you. Oh, that'd be the first. All right, any more public comment? All right, we'll move on. The first item is a public hearing, so we're going to start the public hearing at 6:47 p.m. And the object of the public hearing is for those people who are on Pettibone Lake and are affected by this special district to provide weed control. So now's your opportunity. If anybody'd like to speak, raise your hand and stand up at the, yes, sir. If you know what, just stand up where you're at. There's enough people here, we don't have to.
Jeff Blair, 1851 Highland Drive. This weed spraying program was supposed to be a 3-year program initially, they told us. And now here we are 5 years later, and they want it renewed for another 5 years. And we don't see the quality control. There's still weeds, and I don't understand why it takes 10 years to kill weeds. And after this assessment is due and up after 5 years from now, you know, what changes this from a job to a career for these weed control people? Where does this stop? I mean, I don't think it should take 10 years to eliminate weeds from one lake. There has to be 10 years, 5 years from now, some check to say, how are we doing? You don't understand what I mean?
Right.
And plus, if the state land is not sprayed, this weed program will never stop because the weeds in the state land will always be there, and they'll be polluting the rest of the lake.
All right.
So if they can speak on that.
We have some members in the room here that are working for the company that does the spraying, so if you guys have an answer to that, that would be.
So going off of our contract, it was a 5-year contract signed in 2014 or 2015 through 2019. Why you might see a lot of weeds in the lake is when it was established, we were only going after invasive plants. So those were the Eurasian water milfoil, starry stonewort, and the flowering rush. What we've seen now is all 3 of those plants have been diminished greatly. What you're seeing more of now is the native plant species beginning to regrow and come back and become more populated. We were out there actually yesterday. Most of what we're seeing now is your native pond weeds and eelgrass, which is a late season plant. I know many of you may have seen progress, may have not. Just going off of what we've done the last 5 years is just invasives. If you want to see treatment on those other plants, that's something we could do. It would be the season plan going off invasives, and then you could do an a la carte, which is call to request. So let's say this time of year, like eelgrass, what we've had a lot of lately, you could call us up, we could have a price for you, so you'd have another price on top of the contract.
That this was supposed to be originally for the invasive weed.
Yes, that's what
Yes.
yes.
I mean, 5 years ago, you guys are all on the lake, right?
Yeah.
You remember when the flowering rush was at its full growth stage? I mean, I was out there 5 years ago. I remember every household was, every shoreline was filled with it. And we're 5 years later, and I can almost say we've almost eradicated it. Not completely, but there's a very small percentage left.
What about the state land?
The state land areas, we're by DEQ, we have to stay back from that. that we cannot permit those areas. That's all protected by the state. We're allowed to treat in front of them so, and clear you guys out to give you
So
navigation.
this will never go away then?
No, you know, it's not even so much in the state though, state land. It was majority that was in your guys' beachfront there,
Yes.
which we have targeted and we have fought. So that's all I have to say on it.
I agree. Janet Weir, 2125 Highland Drive, and I do see significant improvements in my life area,
Mhm.
my front, so thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Denise Blair, 1851 Highland Drive. I don't know about the rest of the properties, but we have the association property by the lake, and we still have all along the shoreline flowering rush. So if, I would like to see that addressed, you know, when they're spraying, you know, so that area can be eradicated.
Absolutely.
You do see a significant amount of weeds.
No,
You could also,
flowering rush.
Flowering
Not- I'm
rush,
not-
yes.
no,
right
flowering
along the
rush along
shoreline.
the association property, so where there's no house. So, you know, that would tell you when you're out there.
Okay,
Kind of like a mental note, you know, if you look up there, you can see it.
okay.
Absolutely, yep.
Yep, we'll
Okay.
make note of it and for next time.
Yes,
Yes, Peggy Charles, 1311 Lakeview North, and I've been on Pettibone Lake for 25 years. About 7 years ago when they started treating the weeds, I was not in favor of it. And then when they put it on the assessment, I was not in favor of it. And I came to the meeting and asked if there could be wording on the assessment that at any point, if 50% of the homeowners chose to stop the treatment, it could be, and I think that was put on the assessment. I did not do any follow-up in that time period, and then about 2 weeks ago, I received a letter about this meeting, and I called the township, and they said that 68% of the homeowners had agreed to renew the assessment for 5 more years. My family was never notified, and I know that some other families were never notified. So I have several concerns about this. One is there has been no communication with homeowners on the lake, at least from my experience. You know, maybe in other areas of the, you know, of the lake there are. Secondly, who is monitoring the health of the lake, the water, the weeds, and the wildlife? I did call Aquaweed and I spoke to Casey. I don't know, is Casey here?
Casey's not here tonight, no.
And Casey kind of indicated that it's not their job to monitor the health of the lake. He said that they come out when they are requested. And to me, this feels like a very big undertaking with very little monitoring. My husband and I probably boat, I would say, 4 hours a week where we go out for an hour at a time and we just drive around the lake and relax and enjoy. And we would see in the past, before the chemicals, probably 20 turtles average each time we went out. Now we see 1 every couple boat rides. We still see the birds. We don't fish, so I don't know about the fish. But a big part of the reason I live on the lake is I love the wildlife. And I don't know if the chemicals are directly affecting the wildlife or if they're destroying the habitat so we don't have the wildlife. But who's monitoring? Who's monitoring the lake? This, you know, putting chemicals in without somebody really looking at how the lake is doing seems to me irresponsible. The other concern I have is the safety of the chemicals. You know, we have chemicals in everything, I realize that. Food, everything we use pretty much has chemicals in it. But, you know, is it necessary to put chemicals or even as much of the chemicals in the lake? My husband, I will admit, likes not having to rake the weeds, okay? But he's disappointed to not be able to see the turtles and the other wildlife that we used to see. Is there a in-between moderation of treatment? And I agree with the gentleman that said this was supposed to be a short-term thing. Now here we are 5 years later, going for another 5 years, and when does it stop? Is it just ongoing and ongoing? So I called, it's part of what was formerly the DEQ, Eagle, and I spoke with Lisa Huberty, who's Aquatic Nuisance Control Program, and she was very helpful. I spoke with her for about an hour. She looked up our lake. She was able to look up the treatment plan. She was real surprised that there was a decrease in the wildlife, specifically the turtles is what I what we really notice, especially when we have so much shoreline that is Highland Recreation Area that's not being treated. So she was going to call Casey, and I believe she did that yesterday, and I don't know what she has heard back. I would like to see, you know, what her recommendations are going forward. And she also, I talked about the concern of like, who's driving this? I mean, do we have homeowners that are driving it, and are they experts in this? Or is it just, we want the weeds out? I don't really know, because there is no communication. So she said that some lakes put a lake management consultant between the homeowners and the treatment company. And it's possible at times that there may be and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just saying a possibility, that homeowners that are pushing for aggressive treatment, that if it's within the okay, you know, frame of the weed company doing that maybe they would do it, or maybe it isn't necessary. You know, she did speak pretty highly of the weed control companies, that they're conscientious, that the chemicals are studied, and there's a lot of regulation that they must go through to even be approved. And I know 5 years ago when I questioned it, my daughter was pregnant, and Aquaweed said, I asked about safety with pregnancy, and they said the chemicals were probably safe. Well, that's not good enough, you know, obviously. And at the time, they told me that one of the chemicals they used, the active ingredient, was the same as Roundup, and they said Roundup's used everywhere. And now we see Roundup on the news, that an international study shows that it may cause cancer in humans, but the EPA does not agree with that. You know, and I don't know, I'm not a scientist. But when I asked about the Roundup, when I spoke to Aquaweed, they said, well, there's a whole lot of different kinds, and it's not the same. So it's real difficult for somebody that's not an expert in this to get answers. So I guess my request would be, obviously I think we need more communication around the lake, but that on this next assessment, if it does go ahead, that there be wording that if more than 50% of the people choose to stop the treatment or change or decrease the treatment in any way, that could be done.
Well, this is public comment, and I'm really not supposed to comment during public comment, but I think what I'd like to clear up is that it's not determined by the number of individuals, it's the property size that creates the percentage of it's kind of like a vote on square feet or acres, if you want to call it that. So it's a little bit different when you form these SADs. It's not, if there's 20 people, did 56% of the people, it's 56% of the land made the vote. And it's whoever owns the land, and somebody who has a much bigger parcel has a lot more weight in the say. So that's how that percentage is formed. So, and the other part is an SAD, we only manage the dollars and cents of it, and so the township kind of goes hands off in terms of those determinations. So some people prefer to, you know, try and form lake boards, and then the lake boards are the ones that deal with all these questions, and then you have somebody to go to and talk to. They can get really weird and sticky as well, and as a personal recommendation, if you have any ability to be able to garner people to get together on your lake and have a conversation, you get probably as far as you would with a lake board. So your comments are well put, and you know, having been a person who was involved in the chemical industry through nursery products, I do know that, and these guys can attest to it, that there is a couple studies that say that Roundup causes cancer, and a couple of studies don't always make for a total case. I'm going to say it's possible, but it's not my opinion that counts here. And there is a huge difference between what's put in the water and what is put on crops, and they do it so that the fish and the wildlife don't die. And then on your thing with the turtles, that's one that I think you should probably Maybe as a group, if you want to, you'd have to look at what it would cost to say, let's do a species count on different species, and that would be your check. So it's really it's in your court, and you're here because we have an ability to be able to help you finance it without you guys beating each other up. And it's kind of like, unfortunately, those that don't want it are kind of driven to taking it because of the way the district is formed. But is that, if you want to call it that, democratic style of thinking. But I think that what you have to look at is what's the general population and how do they get voted down, and then these guys here, their jobs depend on not toxifying the water and the sea creatures or the water creatures and stuff. So, but your points are all good, and I remember very clearly the last time we had this same discussion, and I appreciate that you are thinking that way. It's good. It makes other people think, well, there might be more to it. So on that one, I'm going to let you, I just want to answer those two basic questions if that helps you. And then any more public comment? How about we let the lady over here?
Hi, Josie Rutka, 1945 Lakeview Lane. I just have one question. Down on the lakeside, there's 2 lots that are community lots. One for the people that don't live on the lake. So why aren't they included in this assessment? I mean, people use it, it's theirs. They pay taxes on it, and it's private. It's not public, it's private. They pay taxes on it. I was just wondering why they weren't included in the special assessment.
The question that I would ask you is, are you one of those property
No.
owners? Okay, so I know where you're going with that.
No, I just would like to know.
In essence, that
It's not gonna change anything, I figure, but
they
I'd
may
like
be
to know.
getting
Just a question.
a free treatment. I don't know. Is that how it works?
I never thought of it.
Are you guys treating those parcels, or?
Well, one of the lots is the one that Deanna, Denise was talking about. Sorry.
Again, it's driven by the people that live on the lake. We don't set that special assessment district up. You come in and request it. So if you want backlot owners to be included, you can do that. Other lakes do that for a reduced price for the backlot owners. It's just, it's totally.
I don't know who did that, I just.
I mean, I don't know who initiated the petitions or the special assessment district.
So we don't know that, but it's going on and on and on.
Right, so in this scenario, I guess
I don't have the folder.
I don't know what to tell you on that, so.
But again, it's created by it's at the request of the citizens.
You don't know who started it, or why,
Oh, I don't-
who set it up?
I don't know any of the.
We can
individuals
find that out, the folders
Maybe they could,
in staff's hands, but we can find that out.
okay, thank you.
Dale?
Dale Fagley, 1450 Pettibone Lake. I guess I just am asking a couple of questions to these guys that were brought up here. I think they're good questions. Will this ever go away, or is it like weeds in your yard? Once you quit weeding, the weeds will come
It's
back.
like weeds in your yard.
So it may or may not get better, but it may go away to a point that we wouldn't have to treat for a while.
Right. Our goal is just maintain it. That's our goal. Our goal is not to wipe out every single plant in your. That's not healthy for the environment of it. Our goal is just fight the invasives that you guys have been having over the past 5 years, like we've stated, and that's the main goal. And we come out 3-4 times a year to do that. And if there's if there's anything else like you guys had small concerns about, you can always call the office or something like that, and we can come take a peek. But yeah, it's an ongoing process. You're always trying to maintain those invasives. You're never eradicating them.
And the other question is, I believe in the contract, and maybe you can't speak to this, the contract can be voided at any time as long as we're current on the payments.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes.
So if anybody has a better idea and can approach the lake people and come up with a better idea, we can always end you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want everybody to understand that.
Yep.
Anybody else? Yes, sir?
Lloyd Tanner, 1577 South Lakeview. I just have an additional comment for her also, is that maybe, because I also feel uninformed with this, I feel as though some of the conditions are not as good as they were previously. And maybe as part of the contract, since you have a listing of all the properties and the addresses, that maybe you could, before you put out the things, instead of just putting the stakes, maybe you could put a flyer with your phone number and your company name. I never knew who to contact. But maybe this could help you guys also with people who could call you and say, hey, I have this going on. Do you have other people who would be interested in your list to maybe treating this week, particularly? So, that's all. Maybe a newsletter to help communicate, seeing as you have a contract for 5 years. We are the customers, they just pay the bill.
To answer your question, all of our signs do have our email and phone number at the bottom of them, on the yellow sign in the right-hand corner, so that's the way you can contact us. There's also a newsletter that should be sent out through your SAD. If it's not, we can also individually send it out. That's something we do every year when we send out the new contract through your lake president, so we can always contact you.
I've never got one.
I don't think that's a flyer one, so.
Into citizens group. It's very odd that they're not meeting us.
Anybody
The
else,
homeowners
sir?
association.
Yes.
Michael Warren, 1847 Lakeview. I've been a long-time underwater enthusiast, been swimming on the lake for 25 years. And when the weeds came in, before the weeds came in, there were huge schools of fish all around that lake. There were fishermen on that lake, sunrise to sunset. Now, there's so few fish in the lake to see, to observe. I go to Teeple Lake to do my snorkeling, okay, if I want to see something. There's just not the amount of fish that were there because the habitat is probably gone. And I want to, you know, and the fishermen are gone also. Very seldom do you see fishermen on the lake anymore. So it's just my observation, and if I'm anything, I'm not pro-chemical, I'm like anti-chemical. We need to start taking more and more of that out of our system, and this seems superfluous to me. I mean, with that money that we're spending on weed control, we could hire kids at the high school to rake the weeds for us if that was the problem. And then you could do something with them. You could put them in your garden. Now with chemicals in them, I wouldn't put them in my organic garden. Again, just comments and I'm rambling. Thank you.
Okay. I have a joke for you. It's, you probably have scared them away. Just kidding. I enjoy snorkeling myself. And don't you know that the fish always look at you and go, what the heck is that? You know, so I appreciate your comments on that. And so if there's any other public comment? Now keep in mind that you're all in this together in the way that you are owners on the lake. And so it's that majority rules kind of thing, but it's good to have these comments so that the majority can also take your comments and maybe look at how things are being done too. And it's a way to be able to change mindset. Yes, sir.
So whose hands are controlling the lever of like how people get communicated? Is it the chemical company?
No.
No, there's got to be somebody in.
Who is it?
I don't know.
Well, he mentioned
Who's taking on that role? It's 5 years ago, so.
The late board president, is he here?
It must be Brad. Is it?
We're only a quarter of the lake. I think it was our association, is not the whole lake.
That's true. I think we're fragmented, it sounds like.
You know, the
So nobody's in control of asking the right questions or the wrong questions.
and if you need a place to meet, this room is available for no charge for community use. You're welcome to use it. If it's available, you just get a hold of the supervisor's office, right? Or is it your office, Tammy?
Right.
Okay, to schedule
Yeah,
your.
so if you'd like to have a meeting where all of you could get together and hammer some things out moving forward, this room's available. And Tammy's Flowers, the clerk, is where you'd get to do that reservation. It's important to air your feelings, so. Ma'am, in the back, you wanted to ask another question?
No, I was just gonna say, when I called the township, they gave me the name of Mr. Kronk as a contact person, and I tried contacting him and I didn't reach him. So I don't
Ed
know if
Kronk.
he's the one that,
Who?
Ed Kronk.
From
He was
where?
here 5 years ago.
What?
I don't know if he's a current resident or not. I'd have to look at the tax roll.
Yes.
He was here 5 years ago, though.
And that's probably who was the
He's still the
initiator.
contact guy,
Is he?
to my knowledge.
Okay.
That was probably the initiator or the go-to person at the time, that 5 years ago, that this was. It seems like it was only last year, to be honest with you, because I'm looking at a lot of the same faces and going, wow, this
Sounds
is
like the
familiar.
position's open.
So,
So was somebody circulating petitions this year?
I was gonna say, did you all sign petitions this year?
No.
I didn't even know anything about it.
Who was circulating petitions then?
I haven't looked at the
I
petition.
didn't sign a petition.
Who signs the contract with that?
Yeah, I was there at the meeting.
I don't think
so
so.
here's a
I
question.
did.
You do have the folder?
I don't know if you know where to find.
We don't know what we're doing.
I mean, it's Karen's folder, so.
Hey, Gary, is there any
Probably should get them.
Aren't there lake owners?
apparent negative effects to
That's not.
putting a stall point in here?
Because there isn't on the east.
Question again?
Is there any negative effects to putting a stall in this process?
We're under a timeline to go on the tax roll.
Oh, that's the problem, for getting the tax roll.
While she's looking at that, you know,
Okay, I've
some of
got-
you might be aware that Facebook can be used as a tool for communication. And you may want to form a group, a Facebook group, to facilitate communication, because it sounds like you've got a couple of different segments here. And then that way you can all talk to each other as one way. You know, there's other tools, online tools, forums that you could develop, but somebody needs to take the charge and.
No.
Here's
that's
the
just one of
petitions.
those these.
Here's the petitions. It's not saying who circulates them.
No, it is. I did some of them. There's about half a dozen, well, 3 or 4 maybe that.
Well, in any event, what
I mean,
happened,
and
the
they're all signed
petitions
in
that were
July of
signed and
19.
circulated,
Pardon?
I said the petitions that were signed and circulated are the ones that are tallied for the percentage of the property, so it still is it is, in effect, the majority has still stated that they would prefer to have the weed killer. Now, I live on Harvey Lake, and on Harvey Lake, we have a group across the lake from me that kind of does the same thing, only they don't do an SAD, they just get the lakefront. There's probably like 12, 15 houses on the whole lake. And I choose not to have my property treated. So I don't have to pay, but I also don't get the treatment on it. And that might be something that you could organize that, the idea is to get enough people to pay for it. And that's why you assess the whole district that you've created. So, because some people, you don't want to pay. If you didn't have to pay, you wouldn't pay, right?
Oh, no, I pay.
No, the gentleman behind you. If you
Oh,
didn't,
yeah, I
because
choose
you
my
don't
rates.
agree with it, so you wouldn't pay if you didn't have to, and you probably wouldn't put chemicals in the lake. So, in my scenario, I don't like the chemicals. I don't have to put them in on my piece of the lake, which is several hundred feet of
Yeah,
frontage.
but our hands are tied.
That's what I'm getting at. Maybe that's something that
They were tied
you could look
5
at.
years ago.
Yeah, it's a little bit different scenario than what we do in ours. So, yes, ma'am.
Mary Battle, 2093 Highland Drive. If we don't go with Aquaweed, I guarantee you, majority of the people I know would choose an alternative method of doing it themselves, which may not be as healthy of a way to do it.
I can guarantee you that.
So I would rather stick with a company that would do it the proper way and keep the lake healthier than for individual owners to put items in the lake that would kill the species. Now, I came from 6 acres. I've been on the lake 22 years, full-time the last couple of years. I do disagree. I see tons of turtles, I see tons of wildlife, tons of birds. Leave my windows open and I wake up to all of that every day. It's kind of odd, coming from 6 acres where I still have minimal of that. So I don't see a decrease over that wildlife out there. So I'm really kind of surprised because I know, especially when it's beautiful and sunny, the turtles are up on whatever hoist is, they're sunning themselves or rafts or anything that are out there. So I guess I'm maybe a minority, like a decrease, but I think it's healthier as a boater. It's better for the lake, for all the boaters out there. You know, almost every house out there has a boat. If you don't treat the lake, you're not going to be able to use the lake. Then our property values are going to go down. Who's going to be able to sell it for the price they want? It's going to be useless.
Right. There's a thing with invasive species that a lot of people don't realize. The invasive species are there and populate out of control because they have no natural predators. And the species that have been located there prior to the invasion have natural processes that have a tendency to keep them in check or in control. So they'll either be a temperature-based thing where the water temperature reaches a certain number of degrees and it kills root structure. You've got other plants that will interact and kind of help control. But when you get an invasive species that has nobody, no plants, no insects, anything that can control it. And so there's some very serious ones that are involved in that, and that's what you're trying to control so that those original plants have an opportunity to survive, because otherwise they'll choke them right out and then the good weeds will be gone. And now you've got no habitat for the fish because the fish can't even get into it because of the density. They don't provide the shade, they don't provide the right nutrients and things that the fish would survive on. So that's what the process is meant to do, not meant to toxify and turn it into a swimming pool. And one of the wildest plants that's going on right now that's taking over water-based areas is a thing called Phragmites. And Phragmites is this giant reed grass that nobody really realizes. If that takes off along your shoreline, you could easily, in a 20-year period, end up with 20 more feet of shoreline that you don't have anymore. It'll be solid Phragmites. So if you leave it open for this and then this Phragmites comes in, then that's what ends up happening. It's one of the reasons that I say my piece to the people on my lake. I don't like it, but I understand it as long as there's a professional handling it and we know who the professionals are and what they're doing, and we've checked with the DEQ, and Judy and I have been on 11 different lake boards. We work with the Water Resource Commission. We've heard over and over and seen the detail and seen the science on it, and it's very well controlled. So from that perspective, I don't like it, sir, you don't like it, ma'am, you don't like it. You need to speak your piece, because maybe it comes true someday that we shouldn't have done it that way, but today, these are the things that we know we can do, and man always makes mistakes. But I think that the way that these guys handle what they're doing is highly controlled, and I watched a disaster it actually happened in Duck Lake a number of years ago when they finally formed their first lake board. Prior to that, they went around and they dropped off 25-pound bags of toxic material to every homeowner and said, spread it. This stuff would kill your dog. And what the people were doing is taking a bag, punching a hole in it, and just going like this. And that's what you can't have. And that's what will happen. Somebody will go out there and put in enough weed killer for the whole lake in front of their yard. And not pointing any fingers, because I don't know who would do it. Somebody might do it, and that's what you don't want to have happen. And that's why these guys know how to mix the chemicals so that it mixes properly with the gallons per acre and so on and so forth. That's what's critical about it. Whether they spray in front of your house or put it in front of your house, it's going to creep some, but still it would be more your choice. But in this scenario, you need your whole group to help pay for it, and that's how it was set up. And it was done, quote, in a democratic way. democratic as we can get it, and so that's where we're at today. So I'm going to close the
I have a
public.
comment. It sounds like the people that live on the lake don't have any kind of organization. I mean, what I'm hearing,
That's not true.
a petition goes around, well, I don't know, man, it's only so many people have even signed a petition, so.
We have on our side, like, we have a.
Well, I mean, but I'm talking about everybody that's in the room. Some people aren't aware of things. Maybe you really need to get that tightened up so everybody knows what's going on. And you have a meeting and say, if you want information, you need to be here, you need to sign. If you're not here today and you don't come to protest or sign off on something, then, don't complain. We can't do anything here, but I just see a loose, fragmented group out here that, that need to tighten that up a little bit, okay? I think that would be the best thing to do as a group, as neighbors or whatever, landowners that run it, like, get together and iron it out, okay? Bring the Aquaweed folks in, get some action going amongst yourselves to come up with some good solutions. That way you're not mad because I didn't hear about this and he's doing that, and all of a sudden, something hits the fan and then everybody's up in arms because we know what's going on.
Okay, now.
It's your lake.
Here's the opportunity, because we need it. What we do is we're going to close the public session right now, because we've already stepped into us being publicly speaking and shouldn't be doing it. Not because it's illegal, but it's your word and your opportunity. So I'm going to close the public session at 7:21. And now this is our opportunity as a board, because we're going to make a decision on this resolution. I said 7:21. So in the conversation that I heard tonight is an opportunity for you guys to be able to form something still, because at any point in time, if you're not happy, you can, as long as you inform them within a reasonable amount of time and everything's paid up, then you have an opportunity to say, let's stop. So that means to me that you have a stopgap. Well, you still need to do something to get this on the tax roll. That's what's driving the timing and all this. So it means we need to move forward. Either we're going to say no, and none of you get any weed control, and we're not doing the assessment anymore, or we say yes and we allow you to move forward. That opens the door for you guys to let's form your group and start talking to each other, and then you'll have a better handle on it, and what might turn out is a different story. We don't know, but at least you're all talking. So you have that avenue in the way that you've set this up, and you have an out. So by us getting it in the tax roll, at least it's in there and it can roll forward. If it's not in there, we can't collect. You guys are going to have to collect your own money and fight over that and pay these guys. That's essentially what will happen. So I think that this offers a good opportunity for you to form a more cohesive lake board that can talk about this and maybe hammer out some more details, and gives everybody an out if it looks like it's like coming unglued or something. But I think we know that there are enough people that have signed petitions that wanted to move forward, so it tells us that by the democratic process that the majority would prefer to see it happen. I can't vote for anybody else or speak for anybody else but myself. So as you know, I'm not in favor of chemicals, but I have to look at the broader picture here, and I'm doing it, making a decision for what I think you people have come to us to ask us for help with. So that's, you have an avenue for out, you have an avenue to organize, you have, everything is actually in your favor to move forward, so everybody can move forward, and then everybody can also get on a common plane and communicate better and have a way to get out of it. So I think it's a win-win really for and some people lose, but it's still a win-win in that respect. So.
And then I think it would be good to explain, this is the second step in a 3-step process. So if, when we come to the 3rd step at the next meeting, you guys can come back and say, all right, we've met together as a group, we've decided this, and update us if there's been any changes or anything on the intentions of the people that signed the petition. But if we don't move forward, then you're not going to have the opportunity to even consider some of that possibility.
We do have signed petitions that are notarized by the people that circulated them. There's 4 people that circulated them. And one last thing that I want to add is we also have a neighborhood network community roundtable that we bring together Lake Improvement Board leaders as well as subdivision leaders. And that group talks about things that are common and what's working where. So I think you would gain a lot from that group. So I need contact information to keep you in the loop on that one.
So anybody who wants to be kind of a quasi-leader, talk to Judy at any point in time, or Tammy, and leave your name and number, and then we can get you to be part of that neighborhood network, because all of it is based on communication. We've had nothing but a nightmare since the introduction of all this digital media trying to communicate with anybody. Newspapers used to work, now they don't work anymore because who reads them? Well, I read them, some do, some don't, some are Facebook, some are whatever, some are, go on the website. So the communication has actually gotten so scattered that we're trying to find a way to get everybody so they're on a common page, and it is a goal of ours. So we formed a community roundtable, and that's part to do that. This network roundtable is the same kind of thing. Yes, ma'am.
Denise Blair. I haven't been, notified by neighbors. I haven't got letters or anything. But I will say how I'm finding out things. I signed up online through Highland Township for your town meetings and agendas. Your agenda comes up as just a couple pages, but you have an attachment with 153 pages.
Yes, we do.
Right on down to where all the money is being budgets and everything. That's how I started finding out. So I appreciate that right through the township.
Who puts that together?
Somebody reads it.
Somebody
So, I appreciate you guys coming out. So like Tammy said, this is, the next thing is if the board adopts resolution 19-26, it's a resolution to proceed. And at that point, we set a public hearing to be set for October 9th, and then we come back and that's the final component of it. So tonight's not a final decision. It just says, yep, we agree that there's enough interest and enough documentation and so on and so forth, and enough positive comment for us to say, let's vote on this resolution. So I'm going to say, anybody else have any comments? Gary?
I just have one. The resolution you have tonight does 2 things. It approves the project, and it establishes the boundaries of the district. And first of all, I apologize for being late. There were, according to the radio, 4 accidents out on 96. So it is what it is. But one of the speakers commented that there were 2 parcels of property that have frontage on the lake, which I understand to be the criteria for inclusion in the district, that are not included in the district. Is that correct?
They aren't built.
They're not built.
Yeah, they're not built for it. So.
They're accesses for the off-lake people.
But if I understood it correctly, the criteria for the district was land area on the lake.
On the lake. And that's landowners who are, occupants, lots on the lake.
So those are outlots that are dedicated to back lot owners?
Yes.
Presumably the assessed value of those lots goes to the benefiting lot owners?
I don't know how that's assessed.
Yeah. That's how it's supposed to be done.
Okay,
well, it's commonly owned property. The tax assessment for that is to be spread to the beneficiaries that have the right to use the lot. So if there was anything I heard tonight is that maybe those should be included in the district. You don't have to, but I want to point that out. That under the criteria, as I understand it, just because they aren't occupied by a house, they're still properties that are benefited by the lake control.
If that's true, those people that have those common areas never got a vote because they weren't included in the district. And we never got a say in that 54 or 51% of this. So
it's not individuals, it's lot size.
But those weren't included, so we never got a vote.
Right. And they're also not part of the assessment.
But now you're going to tax us something we didn't get a vote on. I think that's illegal.
No.
They're not part of the assessment, so they're not part of it.
They're not supposed to be right now,
It's right there and right there.
but what I'm suggesting is it possible they should be?
I'd say that's up to the individuals.
Well, if you're proceeding, I mean, would including that land area in the determining what 100% is, would that have a big bearing on the 61%?
Nearly nothing. There's
There's small lots.
a lot here and a lot here.
Okay, so that wouldn't change the number of, that wouldn't take the percentage of positioning signatures below 50%.
No.
So, but whatever district the board approves tonight is the district that the special assessment is to be placed against.
Yes.
And it appears that the proposal is to allocate a set amount to each benefited parcel. Is that the idea?
Yes.
I don't know how, I don't want to overly complicate it, but if I were looking at this fresh, I would say you would have put that assessment on those outlots, and then you would allocate that assessment to the benefited properties like you would the taxes that are presumably assessed on that.
So we would spread the special assessment to the beneficiaries of those lots?
Yes. And I don't know how many there are, and it's probably a pittance, you know, because you're only assessing those parcels with a one share item.
There's quite a few outlots.
But then it would change the amount everybody's assessed.
No, because it's based on the lot size, not the people.
One lot would be split by 50 people.
It's not the people.
Well,
It's the-
50.
But who's gonna pay the bills?
That's
There isn't any bill.
Yeah.
The summary says in the amounts of $156 per share per year, and I don't know what that means.
That's for the, for year one.
What is a share?
So.
It's 1/65th.
So each one is $156, so $156, and up to 16 owners of one lot. So it's.
I know.
Yeah.
It's 65 owners. The total cost for the first year is $10,151.
Okay, so the petition signatures are based on land area. The proposed assessment is per lot.
Parcel.
And that doesn't really seem fair either.
Everybody benefits, if you believe in chemicals, everybody benefits equally because the lake it spreads around the lake. It's not just the property lines don't go out and everything ends at those points.
The obligation of any special assessment is to have it be proportional to the benefit received, and that is distinguishable from the number of petitioning signatures that may be required, which is what you have before you. But if you've got outlots that are included in the district, and you included those, it would seem that the end result would be that the per lot assessment for everyone would be slightly less.
I don't know how many outlots are.
But is there any sense in really getting a group together and reevaluating how you're even dealing with this lake? I mean, if you had 50 people or 100 people, no matter what the lot size is, if you want to take care of the lake, then you all share it equally, no matter how big your property is or how small your property is. The lake is a lake. You know, whether you have this much.
I think what we're doing is we're complicating the crap out of this thing. And,
You have to agree.
It looks like it's already complicated.
it absolutely is not complicated. It's based on land volume, and what happens on this lake are some incredibly deep lots that don't have much frontage, and that's what balances it. So you had to find some formula that you could use, and that's what all of the lake boards do. They use that formula to determine what the assessments will be, because it's hard sometimes. You can have some major landowners that are responsible for a huge part of the lake, and then you get a whole bunch of other people that are only a few lot, a little tiny portion of the lake, and they control the lake. And the idea is to make it so that it's basically based on land volume and not individuals.
I think we should just move forward because we have one more meeting. I think folks that live around that lake, you need to really rethink along the way, even as over 6 months or a year, rethink how you're gonna control the management of that lake. And that's my thoughts. I mean, the way it's going now doesn't make any sense to me at all, so I'm gonna stop talking about it. Let's move forward.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say it makes total sense, sorry, Joe, but it makes total sense because you've already determined by petition how many people and what percentage of those property owners have decided they wanna do it. And it's a matter of you guys wanna get your job done, and by creating more havoc, like I said, you guys can take this after we move forward, if we approve to move forward. And you can work it out then. You don't have to, I mean, there's things you can do to change it. If it's not the way you want it, you can terminate it. And you have that ability to do that. So the attorney's just trying to say, there's another avenue that maybe you can go, I'm paraphrasing Gary, that there are 2 more lots that are available to go talk to people that you could spread the cost to. And my experience with these lake boards is the outlot people do not like paying the money to take care of a little tiny portion. If you put all the people in the outlots on the lot at the same time, they're not gonna appreciate the amount of weed control they got. It doesn't make sense to them, but it's a way to spread the cost of maintaining a lake. Duck Lake, big operation in terms of a bubbler and the thing, and they're trying to make it happen, and it's millions of dollars. You have to spread the cost. Who uses the lake? You guys are fairly private, you do have a public access to it. But you have concern over your water, concern over your own lake. You've decided to do something, you came to us, we're trying to help find a way to pay for it. We could just go, you guys figure it out and tell you to go home, but that's not what we're trying to do here. This is what you guys have asked us to help you with. I think we had the system worked for 5 years. Some are not happy, some are, most I think are happy that I've seen on this. So I think that we'll take it from here, and I'm going to say let's vote on whether we want to move resolution 19-26 along.
Can you make a motion?
That's a motion.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
Okay.
Vote please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
I vote yes.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, so on October 9th will be another meeting, which will be the final determination of how we're going to move forward on that. So that'll be the vote. Yes, ma'am?
Just a quick question. So will all the lakefront owners receive a letter about that October 9th meeting?
That's a good question. The irony is that we're
not the staff.
We assess, but we're not in charge of the thing. So I would say we're probably not going to mail letters out to all the property owners, but you should, Gary?
Your resolution requires the mailing.
It does.
Each.
Yes, there will be
Okay.
another one. That's on the checklist here.
Okay.
It's supposed to be done by first class mail at least 10 days before that
Yep.
October 9 hearing.
So before September 27th. it has
So there's
a
the
list.
answer. It's in writing and in front of us.
Yes.
So yes.
Okay, I was gonna say that I would be willing to send out, if I got a list of all the homeowners, send out information about the concerns that are being discussed. But I would not be one to head up anything, just so that we can begin communicating.
What?
Well,
You can come into the township and get a list of addresses if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Is everybody here okay if I send out a letter and just say there was discussion about the weed control in the lake, and if you choose to be involved in the October 9th meeting, would that be helpful? I don't know how else to communicate with everybody. Somebody mentioned Facebook.
You said you're gonna send out a letter, right?
We'll send out a letter if you want to
There's
amplify
there's
it.
Wait.
I don't want a letter.
We sent out a notice of the
Oh.
If it's
meeting.
opinionated, I don't want a letter.
Yeah,
We send out a notice of the
We
meeting.
send out a notice of the public hearing.
Yeah, notice the meeting.
right.
Ma'am, I would say if you want to do that and nobody in here has a problem with it, go ahead and do it. It just improves the number of people that show up. You got a pretty good turnout right now, so.
Personally, I think it's better if
All
they
right,
have the
so,
discussion on their own.
We're on for October 9th, and I thank you guys for coming in. really beat this one up for you. So, and we appreciate your comments. So, we're going to move on. Fortunately, we have a fairly simple agenda. So, thanks again for coming. Anybody wants to stay can stay. A lot of fun you're going to miss. All right.
Hey, good to see you.
All right, we're going to move on to new business. And the new business is introduction of ordinance number Z13 to amend the Charter Township of Highland Zoning Ordinance, Chapter 25, the General Code of Ordinances by revising Article 4, District Regulations to establish use lists for a new zoning district, C3, Low Impact Commercial District, and Article 10, Supplemental Use Provisions to establish regulations for vehicle inventory overflow lots and facilities for service contractors. So this is just an introduction. There's nothing else we need to do on that in terms of introduction, is there? We need to vote on that?
Vote to introduce it?
That would be all you need to do.
Okay, can I add additional language for, to let people know when the next date is for, like, consider for adoption Wednesday, September 25th? Should that be in there? Because that's not a normal board meeting?
Right, you could move to introduce the ordinance and schedule for possible adoption on September 25.
Okay, I'll make the motion to introduce, to do what on? To introduce the ordinance for adoption on Wednesday, September 25th.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Vote, please.
I vote yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Just one brief comment I want to make. Now, you've done that part. As noted by Beth in her memo, there's no companion map amendment presented.
Right.
So,
we're going to have a discussion about that
on September 25th.
on September 25th. So,
I'm not sure I'm enamored with the idea of putting a bunch of regulations on the books for a non-existent district.
Okay, and we asked Beth to be here for that evening,
Right,
for
so
that
the
reason.
fact that you've scheduled it for possible adoption by no means commits you to having to vote up or down at that meeting. You can postpone further if you want to.
so the idea, Mary Pat, is we have a message for you to carry back from the board on the 25th.
I've not seen that before where you put a set of regulations on the books with no property for them to apply to.
So anyways, all right. Thank you, Gary. The next item is an award bid for Highland Cemetery fence. This is a very interesting thing, what time does to process. I don't remember exactly what year it was, but it's probably 2014, somewhere around there. I had put out for bids for cemetery fence at the cemetery for Milford Road, and I had recommended aluminum fencing, and we put out bids, and the bids came back, and the lowest bid was $15,000. Some conversation ensued. We decided we weren't going to do it at that time, so fast forward to this past year, and the fencing that is at the cemetery is wrought iron, corroded out completely. This year it has been hit 4 times. The columns for the gateway, one of them was hit and knocked down, and that was an indicator that if we're going to spend money on fencing, we should be thinking about, are we going to replace it with a really expensive stuff like wrought iron, or are we going to put in aluminum? Well, there is some wrought iron involved in it. I had a client when I was in the landscape business that I built some wrought iron fence for that was over in Prestwick, and their home burned down. And this was an extremely high quality wrought iron fence. They donated it to us. So what we were going to do is replicate it. So There was 100 and some odd feet of fence that my wife and my friend and I went over and beat ourselves up taking down, and we took it over to the cemetery June of last year. And we stacked it up behind the columns, and then I went on vacation for 2 weeks and expected when I got back that we would install this section of fencing, and then we could take the other pieces out as we sell them off and build new fence for that. Well, on July 4th, somebody decided they wanted to steal it all. So it kind of did away with the wrought iron idea, and it also amplified how valuable it was for somebody to steal it. We didn't recover it. We never did find out. We know who did it. Done deal. So we put in for our insurance, and ironically, the net return from the insurance company is $11,000. And our low bid on the fence is $11,840. And so I'd like to make the motion to approve hiring Milford Fence Company to install a new aluminum fence at the cemetery along Milford Road.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported.
Question?
Yes?
Is that fence gonna be the aluminum black so it'll replicate
Yes.
the, oh, okay.
It's the
Just
same
wanted
fence
to
that's at the West
confirm.
Highland.
Okay, thank
So
you.
it'll match that.
A question too, what are we gonna do with the posts that are out there now?
We have to cut those, the steel will get cut off, and the little bumpy columns are gonna have to be left because it turns out they're this big in diameter and they're solid stone and cement.
I'm more worried about the top because there's
That gets cut off.
tentacles on them.
That-
What are you gonna do with them?
Probably scrap them. If somebody wants them, we can keep them and then people could use them. I mean, we've kept the fencing, so if anybody wants any of the fence, it's for sale. We have 8-foot sections. We'll cut them into 4 foot, 2 foot, so you can make garden displays out
I
of
think you should do
them.
that with what you cut off too.
And we can do that too, so,
Tentacles on the top.
Great idea.
there are a few of them that are flattened out and bent up because cars hit them, even after the fence is taken out. So it's like, I'm hoping we're not gonna have that issue moving forward, but I'm not gonna be surprised. So yeah, we'll keep it.
I just have a comment too. My email with the board stuff on it doesn't show the bid, who bid.
It doesn't, it's cut off.
It's cut off, yes. Well, just for future, it would help to be able to see who else bid on it.
A scanning issue. We
Yeah, it
correct
looks
that.
like it's not oriented.
Okay, needs to get done right.
Yeah.
So anyways, back to that irony of the fence. I just want to put out a public comment that Jim and Susan O'Neill, who donated the fence in the first place, what turned out to be a partial donation turned out to be a complete job. So if we'd have done it back in 2014, it would have been a $15,000 job, and we do it in 2019, and it's $840 in cost to us. Of course, there's insurance involved in it, but it's still a shame that it happened, but it did, and irony sometimes plays interesting games, so. We need to vote on it? We did vote. Not
We
yet.
did vote.
Huh?
We didn't vote yet.
We didn't vote yet.
Oh.
Okay,
We
so.
made the motion.
And
You made the
supported
motion.
it.
Have support?
Are we ready to vote?
Ready to vote?
Ready.
Mr. Savia?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item is 11D, to approve architectural firm for professional services. The in-house officials, we've been looking at our capital improvements and the things buildings and facilities and so on and so forth, and the level of funds that we've got in capital improvement, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that we will be doing a capital improvement plan. But what we've determined is we really need to have an architectural firm approved, kind of like we did with Johnson and Anderson, to have them available for architectural services and consulting so that we can move forward on looking at the facilities that we have. We have the police station that needs some redo on the roofing, and somebody maybe come up with a better design for how that works. We're going to have some new fire stations, and we're going to have a building that is gonna be maybe repurposed for buses, it may not, but we need to look at things like that. We've got the senior center in this building that have flat roofs and leaks, and we are stuffed to the gills in every direction. As you notice, there's stuff packed in every corner of this building, and inadequate facilities for, I mean, we got the bare minimum for bathrooms. So we would like to hire an architectural firm. We had Beth Corwin, our planner, work with Ron Campbell, who's the principal planner and preservation architect at Oakland County. And he sent out a list of people that he felt were top qualified architects for the municipal level and things that we're kind of hoping to be involved in. And of those 6 firms that we contacted, there were 2 that responded. And we interviewed them. Sometime, that was back in March, and then we interviewed them in August. And both the firms were pretty doggone good. But what kind of stood out is Lindhout and Associates, architects from Brighton. They seem to have a really good handle on dealing with old buildings and what you can do with old buildings. The Auger, Klein, and Aller architects were more tended to be involved in modernizing and more that type of thing. So we're looking at how do you get somebody to help us design to be in keeping what we have. We're in the DDA district. We want to try and stay with those type of architectural requirements. So Lindhout and Associates stood out from that respect. And the other part of that is that one of the architects that did the presentation is also a resident in Highland Township. And I think that's an asset from the standpoint that he's here in our community. He's a part of it, and things that he do can affects his home environment. So I think that's an asset as well. I'll make the motion. I'd like to motion to approve the firm of Lindhout and Associates Architects, AIAPC, for architectural and professional services.
Support.
Ooh, stereo.
You can have it.
Joe gets this one.
Okay, any discussion?
Questions? Yes. I think that it is a good idea to get someone to look at some of the renovations we're talking about for some of our buildings. Especially after the discussion we had that people said having that money in the general fund, our capital improvement fund. And I think that we need to make the public aware of this, that these are the things we're looking at and this is what we're saving this money for.
Yep.
And so I do think that is a good idea to go forward that, but we need to be transparent and let our public know exactly what we're thinking, exactly what the plans are for the future.
And on a note that I think is very important to understand is that the money that we have for this capital improvement didn't just come over the last 5 or 6 years. It was something that a series of boards, a series of years made astute decision making that allowed for intelligent spending and what ends up happening in budgeting is that money that's left over that isn't used goes into general fund, and then you take that general fund and that's what you use for maintaining things, and you move it to the capital fund so it's protected there that says we're going to use that to maintain our facilities for the future, and that's where that funding came from. And it just shows that Highland Township, which did a great job of having no liability for our retirements, find another community that's in that position. Southfield, it's Birmingham Township. I think it's Birmingham, Bloomfield Township. They're going through a process where they're taking away all these different things that they've been given to the public, like $4.5 million worth of stuff because they're behind in their covering their retirement plan. And when you look at that, it is mismanagement. It's poor decision making over a long term to not make sure that the commitments you made down the road are met. So the previous boards, from when I was on, since I've been supervisor, and I think the 2 boards I've been on since, have done a great job of making sure that those things are covered. And so health-wise, we're in great shape and have been. So this is an opportunity now. Let's get serious and take care of what we have that's aged to the point of.
Just have a couple comments.
Yes.
Okay. I was on the committee for the bond fund for the Huron Valley School District, so we had a lot of evaluation of architects and contractors, et cetera. And one of the reasons we went with the more localized firms because they were closer to be in contact, and there was the same consideration for some of the staff or some that were even residents. So there's a lot closer connection for those types of reasons for choosing someone. That's very important that they're closer in. So.
Agreed. You had.
Oh, just for my own knowledge, is this architectural firm going to be like on salary or just paid per job?
It's paid on demand.
In
In other words, they'll agree
right.
to, we're not going to have.
Need them, whatever.
Yeah, right now,
Services,
there's no money spent. They'll agree to be a consultant when we request it. And then we'll have to, once we award it, then we're going to have to sit down and figure out how we move forward. I mean, you don't just want to say, hey, glad to have you around, and never ask them to do anything. So
Right.
it's serious. You need to make those decisions. So there's no fee or anything at this point in time. It's like our attorneys, we never pay him until later.
Right.
But like our attorneys, it's a valuable asset. There's a lot of things that we learn right here on the spot. I learn on a regular basis by having that attorney present. And it is an asset to the community to have that. So, all right. Did we vote or no?
No, we're waiting for you
I
to call
talked
for
too
the
much.
vote.
Ready?
Ready.
Yes.
Mrs. McDonald?
No.
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next items, these are the most difficult part. Budget amendments. Somebody else want to make a motion?
We're speechless. I would move to approve the budget amendment for transportation as presented.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
This is just to transfer some money around between lines within the department. It's a net effective zero. It's just kind of a reshuffling, reprioritizing per se.
Thank you.
What happened is there was funding from SEMCOG from a grant. And it's reassigning those items to different elements, that money to different elements.
Okay.
Vote?
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, next item, budget amendment for the police department. This is the one where I said that the sheet had the wrong
It's just the one label.
title. It's a label. So we'll want to replace that with police fund. It would have been a good deal for you, Matt, because we were taking money from the library and giving it to you. So it didn't work that way. We tried, but it didn't happen. So
This is to provide for the just a little bit of renovations happening over at the station.
I move to approve the budget amendment for the police department as presented.
Support.
moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 Motion carried.
The jacuzzi's hot?
We're all set, we're just waiting for the counter.
Oh, okay.
This is how rumors get started.
I would move to approve the budget amendment for roads. This
Support.
is,
Oops, sorry.
Moved and supported?
Judy, you want to explain?
this is, we've gone through whatever fund balance was in the road fund, so basically the road fund is out of money, so we need to move money from general to finish paying for our obligations.
Okay, vote, please.
Mrs. Cooper?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Budget amendment for the library fund. Judy, you want to talk on this one?
So we paid the 20-year bond off, and as long as there's less than 5% of the original bond, we can keep that as an administration fee. We did not charge an administration fee throughout that 20 years. We did have different costs every year because we had to have a continuing disclosure by an outside firm to make sure that we were levying the correct amount for the library bond. So this was every year we would look at what we were levying as far as the millage rate to make sure that we had enough money to pay the debt, and this is the remaining balance. 5% would have been $250,000.
Did somebody second that?
I think.
I have Judy making the motion.
I think
Rick did.
Rick
I
seconded the
read
motion?
it, but I read it. I guess I can make the motion. Somebody second it.
Support.
Okay, there we go.
right.
Support.
So Judy, is this money we're getting back then, or we're keeping from the library fund, and that's why
We're
it's
keeping from the
reducing?
library debt fund.
Okay.
We have no control over their operating monies, just their debt.
So I don't know if you heard what Judy was, to me, I can't hear out of this ear tonight, so I don't know how loud she was. But I was informed today about this and didn't realize it. And this is how, another way that the board and the people who have worked on this board approach things. We could have charged the library $250,000 to administer this account. And in essence, the total is gonna be $70,000 over the life of what that bond was. So instead of gouging to the limit to cover it, we did what was the right thing and allowed, nearly $200,000 to be used by the library instead. So, good job. Did we vote on that one?
Ready to vote?
Ready to vote.
I vote yes.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, the next item on there is vaping ordinance discussion.
So, Lieutenant Snyder came and mentioned to me that he had some thoughts about the vaping ordinance that we passed, so we decided to just bring it up for a discussion topic here to get everybody on the same page and figure out where we want to go.
So currently, our ordinance, the vaping, tobacco, nicotine products, this ordinance is geared to the minors. Currently, as the ordinance is written, tobacco, vaping, a minor is going to be charged with a misdemeanor, first, second, third offense. There's some other things that go along with that, with the ordinance. What I want to compare it to is September 2nd, state law came out with their vaping law for state law. And the first two offenses are civil infractions. I just want to bring this to your attention. I think my intent when we started working on this vaping ordinance is not to make it a crime, not to make it a misdemeanor. I'd rather see it be for all the offenses, first, second, third, a civil infraction, assess a fine. We always have the state law. If we need to, maybe a little bit more severe, but I don't think the ordinance should be more severe than the state law.
Where does the state law, what are the steps, like first, second, third?
State law is, it goes for the first offense, civil infraction, second is a civil infraction, and the third offense is a misdemeanor. I'm not saying our ordinance third offense should be a misdemeanor and mimic the state law. I think it should still be a civil infraction, assess a fine. The way the ordinance is now, I think first offense would be $50. Second offense, or 75, I think. I'm not sure, 50 or 75. Maybe the second offense would be 150. It would increase, but I don't think it needs to be.
Can I ask you why you don't? Why are you not in favor of like a third offense being a misdemeanor with it? Can I just finish real quick? With the problems we're having with vaping now, that we're finding how detrimental it is to I'm just asking, would you think it would be,
We could always follow on the state law if we have to do
Okay.
this. Now, you gotta understand, now, when we're dealing with minors, and we're dealing with a misdemeanor, we're not gonna go through a local prosecutor. We're gonna go through the state probate
Okay,
court, because
okay.
it's a crime. If you make it a civil infraction, a ticket can be issued and it can go right to the court. It would
Okay.
save us time, it'd be a
Gotcha.
little quicker. Another comparable might be the new marijuana law, the act that went into effect. You get somebody under 18 with marijuana, civil infraction. Under 21, consumption of alcohol, civil infraction.
gotcha,
It might be a good time to even like have the tobacco, have the whole ordinance, tobacco too, because tobacco it's an old ordinance, which was a misdemeanor, just combine the whole ordinance as it is. Now, that's not for me to decide, this is just me giving you my
No, right.
input, that's for the board to
Appreciate that.
decide. But I just wanted to bring, my intent was when we did this vaping ordinance, just to have it a civil infraction,
Gotcha.
not make it a crime.
it's probably not really worth all the hassle, right? Is that what you're, I mean, is it,
It's
it's kind of a, you know what I'm saying?
It is worth having the ordinance.
Right.
Where we're seeing.
But I'm saying the misdemeanor aspect of it, just,
Enforcement.
Yeah, I think you're gonna see the fine, the civil infraction, taking time to go to court. This ordinance also says first offense, the court may include some community service.
okay,
You know, the second offense, the hours increase, you know,
right.
so that's up to.
I like,
the
no, I
court.
like, okay, I get it now, thank you, thanks for
The
clarification.
idea is to not turn every kid that's vaping and gets caught into a quote
Sure,
criminal.
I get it, yep.
It's the level of
Gives it a little
intensity.
teeth to it for our ordinance. That's where we're seeing it. Just like,
Okay.
you know, we're seeing it in the school.
Right,
We're not seeing it on the day-to-day calls our deputies are going to on the road. We're seeing it with the school resource officer.
Right.
He's got a problem with it,
yeah,
you know, and, you
it's
know.
scary, it really is.
It is, it is. So we want a little teeth to it, but we're trying to put it into perspective where you have alcohol, civil infraction, marijuana, civil infraction. Okay, vaping's a misdemeanor. You gotta have some common sense
Right,
to
right.
it.
We had a presentation in the spring, a nurse came from U of M, I think, and man, I kinda knew what vaping was, I mean, obviously it's not my thing, so, man, that opened my eyes. I told my students after, if you're doing it, man, you better get help, because you're not going anywhere with that. It was bad, they showed the lung action and all that, I mean.
Yeah, you know, the state.
Scary.
I mean, the state law just went into effect on September 2nd.
Okay.
You know, a lot of communities are adopting local ordinances. They are seeing an issue with it. It was kind of like when they came out with, you know, the synthetic marijuana.
Right,
You know, it was out there, it wasn't regulated. I think when vaping came out, wasn't regulated, you know. They're starting to see it be a problem, so now they're starting to regulate it.
well, thanks for the information, man, I appreciate it.
Gary, you were going.
I just wanted to comment, when we did the vaping ordinance earlier this year, the approach taken was to build on the existing ordinance on youth tobacco. And so everywhere where it said the minor may not use tobacco, this or this, vapor products was inserted. I mean, it may not be exactly that word. You can't sell tobacco to a minor, now you can't sell vaping products to a minor. And so it relied on the existing penalties for youth tobacco offenses entirely. Now, I'm not sure, without checking the State Youth Tobacco Act, whether you have the ability to change the tobacco-related penalties, but as I've indicated, you certainly can change the vaping penalties as is proposed by Lieutenant Snyder. But that was the approach taken. I think Beth Corwin started out with a draft. She said, you know, maybe did some fine tuning, but there was never any effort to do individualized consideration of different penalties for vaping. It was just, okay, it's like tobacco, we're gonna penalize it like tobacco. That was the approach that was taken to it, so.
I appreciate it, makes a lot more sense, I appreciate you.
So can we have a revised ordinance for our next meeting then?
Yeah, is the board interested in revising the
Yes.
ordinance?
I think so.
I wanted to get a feeling before we put the effort into it. So
That's a good
is the feeling we wanna reduce it from a misdemeanor for both tobacco and vaping or just vaping?
think they need to line up.
Well, I think what Gary was saying is we're not sure that we can change the state law.
I'm more than 50-50 that you can't mess with a tobacco penalty.
But the critical thing right now, we already know what tobacco does to people, and the vaping is proving to be just about as severe, or maybe, who knows, maybe worse. So I think the key here is that, that the vaping is probably what we need to focus on as a change.
Yeah,
Matt, is that?
and I don't know, Gary would know, if you can't change the tobacco, would the vaping have to be a standalone ordinance then?
It doesn't have to be a standalone ordinance, we just need to structure separate penalty provisions.
By the time we get the ordinance for the next meeting, you should be able to tell us whether we can do it or not with tobacco, right?
Yes.
Okay.
What?
I'm just curious, if it's legal to change the level on tobacco as well as vaping, would we want to do it that way?
Your recommendation, Matt, is to have it that?
I'm looking, me personally, I'm looking at the vaping and the tobacco kind of very similar. And then I'm comparing it where you have marijuana and alcohol civil infractions. If it's something that.
Doesn't it make any sense that these things aren't really good for minors to begin with, and we want to minimize the penalties? I think it would make sense that they know that they shouldn't be doing this, and if they do that and they get caught, the hammer comes down. I mean, obviously everyone's watched the news. Even though you're not dying or maybe you have an illness, the prolonged effect of that could be dangerous for years later. Some of these people are going to have suffering consequences years later.
Now, just so you know, a lot of how we operate here with the sheriff's office, we have the local ordinances and we have the state laws. We try to write most of our offenses under the local ordinance. We're contracted by the township. We try to support the township ordinances. But we always have the state law. We could always say, hey, we're going to write something in state law.
Yeah.
So we have options.
I just think we need to be focusing on that too, that we can be soft, but we need to, somewhere along the way,
Well, I think Matt and I have had a minor conversation about this, and there's some other things I think that I'd like to tie to it. There's different ways to use a hammer. There's a hammer that can become a permanent mark on your life, and a misdemeanor is something that is more permanent than a civil infraction. I don't know how far it goes.
Misdemeanor is a crime, and when we do a report for that, whether it's a ticket or somebody goes to jail, they're gonna be listed in our database as being an arrestee. They will always have an arrest record, whether it's a ticket or not. When you have a civil infraction, it'll be listed as a suspect, not an arrestee, because it's a civil infraction.
And that's exactly my point.
Responsible, that's how our report writing system works. We can't put them in as an arrestee in our database when it's a civil infraction. And like I said, you always have the state law to fall on an option B.
So what happens is, if you put the hammer down and you give a kid a misdemeanor, you've tagged them for life. And they aren't necessarily thinking straight, or they maybe wouldn't have been vaping in the first place. We treat minors differently anyways. And I think what you need to look at is there's different ways to put the hammer. And one of them is, I'll use an example that Matt and I worked out, and I think with the court and everything worked out great, was when the guys tore up the soccer fields. There's two guys that went out and we caught them, and rather than putting them through a process where they got tagged with something long term, I took the two guys and we sat down, we had a conversation with, Matt was there, and I said, here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna fix it. And if you're not willing to fix it, then you get tagged with the crime. And so I took the two guys out, and the three of us fixed everything in the soccer field in 4 hours. Now the soccer club got a quote for repairing it of $30,000. The guys did repair their crime, and the irony was is they got an opportunity to be one, working with somebody that maybe could talk about how stupid they were, and then also maybe teaching them some ways of here's how you take a rut out of a soccer field with a learning process. But the net result was several years later I ran into these two guys. And the first thing they did is thank me for it. And that's what you want to do, is you want to have the kids, hey, stupid, you shouldn't be doing this thing, but no, boom, here, tag for life. And I don't agree with tagging people for life at that age when.
Well, it's the same with youth assistance.
Yep.
It's a great referral program versus charging them. Send it to youth assistance through some programs. So these are great resources. So we're not hammering them with crimes.
Right.
But you always have that option if they go through all the resources and it's that particular kid that just isn't conforming. You got those options.
Right.
In order to move this discussion forward and to figure out where we stand, I'm gonna make a motion, and then if it goes or not, it's up to you guys. I'm gonna move that we direct Mr. Dovry to prepare an ordinance revision to change the penalty for both vaping and tobacco use to civil infraction, if legal. Support.
May I ask one question?
Yeah.
The ordinance in both cases focuses primarily on minors, but it also has a provision that prohibits the sale of the offending products to minors. And at least in my mind,
That
if
should
an
be
adult
different.
is
That should be a
doing that,
misdemeanor.
they should be subject to misdemeanor penalties if that's what the ordinance currently says. So
I agree with that.
That's like the
I'm good with
alcohol
that.
thing that's
That's the
stored.
resale shop selling the vapes to a
Yeah.
minor.
We're talking about usage only.
So the offenses that would fall on the shoulders of the minor are the focus of your motion.
Yes.
Okay?
All right.
I'll-
Can we
I'll-
vote on this?
I'll second it. Who
Judy
seconded
already
it?
did. Okay.
Vote.
Right. Mr. Salvia?
Yes.
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 Thank you,
All
Matt.
right, motion carries.
Thanks for that clarification.
Yeah.
That's important to me. I just hate tagging people with something that's gonna go for the rest of their life that could, you may get a brilliant individual that gets left to the side because, hey, you got him. You're a criminal. And it was over vaping. There's worse things that they can do, so. All right,
Is there an awareness for the minors to start getting the word out that this is something that they may be facing as far as
The
the
problem in the past was with no laws or ordinances, the school was disciplining kids, but it never fixed anything. This just, even the parents weren't informed about the problems. There is a coalition, in the community that tries to educate the kids.
So this would be a building of an awareness that would get to the students.
Yeah,
Actually,
Randy,
the coalition was kind of involved with coming to the township and asking them to do this ordinance, so they're pretty active in the
Randy Root,
Yeah.
Kim Root's husband, he has a grant that has allowed him to go to the schools and to build programs, and he's got a fabulous young lady that helps him, that is really gets right in with the students, and so they're really driving
Well, that way
hard.
they now see in front of them this first offense, second offense, third offense, you're getting yourself deeper.
Well, they're trying to find the solutions, and this is one of the things that Randy came forward to us, and that's how the whole vaping thing moved forward. So it's back to that communication thing. How do people know? How do you get it out there, and who's responsible for doing it? And so it's difficult. How many people are sitting in the audience here? Not enough to. Well, it would make a difference. I mean, you can go out there and make a difference. So.
Can I say something real quick? Man, I want to say, being in the schools, and I can't speak for who you have at Milford High School, I don't know who it is, but man, that's the best thing we've ever done in the school district. Well, we've done a lot of great things, but one of the best things having you guys with Milford High School, and we have White Lake Police, we have Officer Snow right now, Jessica's just outstanding. We've been blessed, every liaison officer we've had has been great. I'm assuming the same thing at Milford High School, I don't
Yeah,
work
it's
there.
Deputy Delanoy, he's been in there over 5 years.
Okay.
You gotta get the right person.
Right, but I want to thank you guys. I know it's not you personally, but the department, And White Lake, it just has been having somebody with a law enforcement, honestly, having somebody with a weapon in the school in case something ever happened, unfortunately, it would be, I'd feel so much better having somebody that's, it's not, it means a lot, it helps a lot. Especially they can handle all the legal stuff. It helps our administration because they can deal with the legal stuff now.
Right.
Where the administration can kind of have that big guidance. It's been working great, so thanks.
There's no more public comment. Okay, the next item is, Tammy is going through board policy and stuff, and there's some elements here that you guys.
So since it's getting late, I just was gonna ask if anyone has any issues with the wording and the equipment disposal policy. You know, if you're wanting any changes, let us know, and we can propose some changes. My major concern with this was to address the hall rental policy. It's not up to date, and since we're renting other township properties without a policy, I think this is an area where it doesn't need to have a policy. You know, it seems overly micromanaging to me for the board to have a policy just to handle township hall rental when we do other rentals, you know, on our own without a board direction on that. So I would. Are
you talking about like this room? But
yes,
and
this
that's,
particular room has a
those-
policy to
okay.
control, but it hasn't been followed in many years, to my knowledge. And so, rather than update it, I would just propose abandoning this policy. Yeah.
Question, so what rules do we operate under for renting the other properties?
So we have a contract that the activity center uses for renting out their hall or the annex building, and ironically, on occasion, the activity center will sometimes employ this room for their activities, but it's weird because they can control their space under their contract, but this particular room has its own particular policy.
And then I saw in your memo about park pavilions.
Correct.
Those are also rented?
Right, and there's a contract that we've been using for
Yeah,
years.
in the park rules and regulations, there's a component that says the pavilions are available for rent. And so it's not a complicated.
And those contracts at some point in time have been approved by the board, or?
But, wow, that park pavilion, I don't know, it's been in place for a long time. I know you reviewed, or your firm reviewed the activity center rental agreement because it's been recently, you know.
Well, at the end of the
reviewed.
day, the township board is responsible for, all township properties, and you certainly don't have to have a policy focused on this room. Probably not a bad idea for the board to, at some point, maybe adopt a resolution that just simply says, here's what we approve for township rentals.
Maybe the policy is that anything we do must have a contractual agreement. Embedded in that is the support of our policy to make sure everything's run right.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's working fine for.
It is working fine. It hasn't been any problem for a long time. Basically, this room is made available to your homeowners associations and your lake boards, and there's a community nonprofit group, the Right to Life group, rents this room. And there's a small deposit check that's been, kept in place, and that's where this we're having a little issue right now because we've adopted a cash handling policy that says we can't hold checks over a period of time, and the practice for holding deposits for this room from these groups has been to staple a check to their rental agreement and keep it for a year, and that's out of compliance with our cash handling policy. So when I was looking at how to bring that policy into compliance with the other one, I was looking at this and I thought, well, we either have to change this or we can just do away with it and leave it up to, you know, the control of the managing board members.
And it would just be, the contract would be all the rules right there.
Right.
Does the library, they do their own, do you have anything?
I don't have anything to do with that.
Okay.
Well, as I said, our policy would be anything we rent must have a contract with the rules specified.
Sign
Or at least a
contract.
rental agreement, because the issue is, what if they leave it a mess?
Well, that's right,
That's why the
contract.
deposit, and so there's gotta be something in place to protect the room.
Yep.
So our policy
would be the
is everything will
contract.
have a contract or a rental agreement, et cetera,
Yep.
as a document to
I'll look at it.
keep it in place.
We have a rental form that they fill out.
We've been collecting $50.
And
We'll
then
continue to
it-
do that.
They're responsible for cleaning up after themselves, so, I mean, that's the biggest issue with using the space. I think years ago when they did this, they used to rent this out for showers and all that kind of stuff too.
Right.
So, you know, it was an issue then, but, you know, it's not popular for that anymore.
I don't know why, it's a nice facility.
Yeah.
Okay, so to move this along, I'll make a motion to, I'm not sure what the right word is, Gary, to
Repeal?
repeal the,
There you go.
the Township Hall rental policy.
Support.
Moved and supported.
Are we ready to vote?
Sure.
Why don't you add in there of July 11th, 1984?
Is that really what it was?
Do you see that it's a dot matrix printed document?
It's funny.
Yes.
I thought that was my last one.
Right. Okay, so we're ready to vote now?
Yes.
Okay, Mrs. McDonald?
Yes.
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 Motion carries.
Next.
So,
Want to get into this one?
yeah,
The equipment disposal.
yeah, I don't know if anybody has any thoughts on the equipment disposal policy or wanting any changes, or you're happy with it the way it stands. I'm happy with it the way it stands. I just wanted everybody to have a chance to read it, because I don't know if you've read it recently, and
Have we had any concerns or issues at all?
I think it's fine. We don't get rid of equipment all that often.
Smart orders.
We keep it until it vaporizes on its own.
That's pretty much true.
Okay, so that's
We'll
fine.
leave that one alone then.
Mhm.
All right. I'm going to then move on to the next item, and I'm going to make a motion that we move into closed session to consider acquisition of property, and we added,
We were gonna ask
I
Gary
think
about
it's
that.
separate motions if you're gonna
Yeah.
have separate topics.
we need to ask you a question.
So it was suggested in, when we were approving the agenda, that we go into closed session to discuss a recent employee complaint. And I wasn't sure if we had the legal standing to do that at this time.
Was it added to the agenda?
It was penciled in as a possibility.
Based on your,
It was added to the agenda when we approved the agenda, but they weren't sure if we could do it.
See what you had to say.
Is that the item that's been the subject of communications with Laura? from last
Yeah, and I
week?
can update you a little. I have been conducting an investigation in that situation. It's not complete. I have copies of some statements to provide to the board members after the meeting to bring them up to speed on what's happening. My personal suggestion would be to hold off and wait until the next board meeting when we have more complete information.
Which could be your September 25 budget meeting.
That would be my
I would be more comfortable with
recommendation.
that approach. I've been following that email exchange. I did not see anything suggesting that we might want to talk in closed session tonight. Typically, if that's, clear to us, we'll most often provide a confidential letter that clearly allows a closed session. On this one, I'm not 100%, and if I'm not, my level of comfort is not there.
Just defer to that too.
So I would say, let's do that on the 25th. there's another item that I want to talk to the board on the 25th, if they'll let me come to that meeting.
What's that?
Be a closed session item also.
If you let me come to that meeting, it's because it's a budget workshop.
So Rick was in the middle of making a motion, I'm not sure he completed it.
Finished it.
Acquisition of property.
Right.
Support.
Moved and supported. Vote, please.
Mr. Howe?
Yes.
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 Motion carries. Had a closed session at 8:56.
Okay, we're back in session. I guess I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution fire station site acquisition resolution 19-27. Resolution for acquisition of property and approving declaration of necessity and taking as presented by our attorney. Is that
Support.
moved and supported?
Question, does that resolution have a 2-page survey and sketch attached to it?
Yep.
Great.
All right, vote please.
Mrs. Chenoweth?
Yes.
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 No.
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, meeting adjourned.